Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a wrap-up for June. Let's start with... I haven't put everything in my caught pile yet. I thought I'd do this first. So I'll start with... I'll start with this first. So I did a DNFB type of video, but I also DNF'd Feybound. It just wasn't really clicking for me. Like, I was kind of interested to see where it went, because I think I stopped at part 2, or chapter 10 or whatever. I didn't know if it was in parts or not. And I thought about picking it up, and then I said, no, let's read something else. So, yeah, it just wasn't clicking for me, and I'm really sad about that, because it sounded really interesting, but compared to everything else I read this month, besides the other DNF, yeah, just wasn't there. And I also read All Systems Red, Artificial Condition, and Rogue Protocol by Martha Wells. They'll be somewhere here on the screen. They're part of the, that's 1 through and 3 of the Murderbot Diaries. And All Systems Red is about Murderbot, who is, he's actually a sec unit, but he goes by Murderbot. And he has a company of humans that he is trying to protect and that he gets attached to, and in Artificial Condition he goes off and tries to find out about his past, and he runs into another group of humans which he is quite fond of, or they, I don't remember what Murderbot goes by. And then the third one, he's trying to get information for his humans from the first book, so they can, because he's still, even though he's separated from them, he's like, I have to protect them, and he wants them to go back home where it's safe. So, and again, he meets a lovely group of humans who he doesn't get as attached to, but he still decides to save. And then the other audiobook I read was The Time Machine, again somewhere here, by H.G. Wells. It's considered a classic in the sci-fi genre. And of course it has its I think everything seems, I can't remember where I saw this or read this, but when you read something that's sort of was at the forefront of the genre, when you read it, you're like, well, that's boring, because it invented this genre, and it just sort of started it. It didn't, you know, do anything super fantastical with it. So there is that. And then there's also, because it was written in 1895, so there are those values written into it. It's also been made into adaptations, either radio or film. So people it's sort of like in the pop culture of it. So it's kind of like War of the Worlds. Everybody kind of knows what happens. Excuse me. So yeah, but there are 1895 issues there, I would guess. I mean, it's pretty, for the time, it was probably pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Like how it talks about people. It was probably pretty outgoing for the time, but now it's sort of like, oh, you shouldn't talk about people like that. Or I don't know how to explain this, but you know what I mean. Outgoing is not the word. Ugh. But yeah, it's good. You should listen to it. Take it. Just keep in mind that it was written in 1895 by a white man. So, you know, don't like expect a lot of criticism. People are like, I remember Shakespeare was on like a list of problematic authors, and I'm like, he's not. He was writing in the 1600s, where a lot of people held those views, or like Virginia Woolf, a lot of people held the views that she held. So when you read classics, you have to take into account the time that they were written and who they were written by, and just take that into account, and you'll be fine. But The Time Machine is about the time machine, which apparently, according to the Wikipedia, Wells coined that word, but it's told in like the main character tells what happens to him to other people, and they're telling us. That happens a lot in the 1800s. I believe there's a word for it, but it's gone. But nobody really has names, not even the time traveler or the narrator. So yeah, he says, oh, I invented time travel, and people are like, pshaw, and then he does time travel, and then he tells them what happened and how far into the future he went to, and then what happened to him there. So that's kind of the story. A lot of these are pretty simple, but H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, they're simple stories, but they are interesting stories. So anyway, I believe, yeah, okay, and then I read a ton of books for the amazing readathon. I started like late in the month, but I managed to catch up. I didn't do any sightseeing books or anything because I just focused on what I read. So I'm just gonna start with this one. This is Jarrell of Jory by C.L. Moore. It is a short story collection. They were written in the 1930s in Weird Tales, which is like where a lot of classic sci-fi fantasy stories were published. C.L. Moore is a woman, which I love so much, because you hardly ever hear about female writers in the 30s who, you know, jump-started this sort of fantasy. You always hear about the guys. So Jarrell is the Lady of Jory, which is, oh god, I think I read somewhere it was in medievalish France in an uncertain time period, and that's her on the cover. She's a badass. She's tall, she's got red hair and yellow eyes, and she commands her troops of men in battle, and she wears armor, and she could kill people. And the first two stories are interconnected, and Jarrell's castle gets taken over, and then she is assaulted, but not sexual. Well, she's kissed without her consent, basically, and I don't think it's any more than that. There might be the implication of something more, but you know, it was written in the 30s, and with a main female character, they probably hedged a little bit. But she decides she's had enough, and she goes down into the depths of her castle against the advice of her priest. Excuse me. Who also knows, well, they don't know what's down there, but that's not good because they both got a bad feeling about it. And she goes, and it's like a fantastical place, and she gets what she wants, essentially. And then, because it's basically like historical fiction, historical fantasy, because, you know, Jarrell and Jory aren't real places, but they have like Guillaume, other names that you would, it's not a fantasy land, it's Earth, France, I think I said. Europe, somewhere in Europe. But it's like mixed with the magical, and how she's not, like, she's terrified, but she's gonna do it anyway. Like in the third one, she goes through a window of magic, essentially, and her men are like terrified, cowering behind her, and she's like, give me a dagger, I'm gonna go in there and do what I have to do. And, you know, she is scared, but she powers through it, which essentially saves her life multiple times. And then I liked Hellsguard. It's basically like a haunted castle. And again, and I think even in well, in all of them, but yeah, she's just scared and terrified, but she keeps powering through and, you know, wins the day, basically. So yeah, I quite liked it. I believe there are 6 short stories, so that's only missing 1. And I liked it. I liked her a lot. Sometimes classic 1930s sci-fi fantasy can be hit or miss, particularly because I think it was dominated by white men at the time, but that one was good, and I recommend it. I read In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. This is about Tal, who's on his coming-of-age tour, and he meets Athlin, who is on a ship as a captive, and then disappears, and Tal is heartbroken, but then he meets him again, and why is it creaking so much? So yeah, and then there's some political intrigue, but some cute, I think it's the cover, some cute romance between them and some other side characters. And yeah, I would say the only thing is you think the bad guy is one person, or Tal does specifically, so you, following his perspective, do, but then you get some information and you're like, oh, okay. And Tal picks up on it, but it's a little bit like, but there's also like a description, like the descriptions of people are really well done, so you're like, oh, they're probably not as good as they sound. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this. It's short, only 20 chapters, and little gay romance. Gotta love it. My cat also liked the bookmark, so she played with it. And she's an old lady, so she doesn't play with much, so 10 out of 10, basically. Next, I read The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. This was originally published in 1988. And it's about Gen, who is the thief, and he is tasked. He's in a prison, king's prison, and he's tasked by the king's magus, or magus, I'm not very sure how to say that, to steal a legendary object. And on the road with him are two young boys, young men, and the young men's protector. Again, it's pretty short. It was very good. It was very, very, very good. Gen is a good narrator. There were times when you like absolutely hated some characters, and then you liked them again, much like Gen did. There's some great mythology in here. There is, of course, political intrigue involved, especially in what he wants to steal. So I don't want to give too much away because it's really good, and I think you should read it for yourself. I have the other two. There's 5, I think, and I've got 2 from the Fairy Loot editions, so yep, going to enjoy reading those. Stacking my books up in a better pile. So, but yeah, Gen is a great character to follow. He's interesting. He's funny. He's not perfect, but he's very good. And then I read Wondersmith, which is the second in the Morgan Crow series. This picks up not directly after the first one, but a couple months, and she is going to school, and she has a unit, and they are sisters and brothers, loyal for life. And then things go to shit. As is wont to happen to poor Morgan. Even though she has been told in the first book she is not actually cursed, she still holds on to that. Like, obviously you would if for like 11 years of your life you've been told you're cursed. I think she's 12 in this one. So yeah, and her mentor Jupiter isn't always there on hand because people are going missing. So it's up to not just him, but him and others to figure that out. So he can't always be there for Morgan, which upsets her, obviously. But, you know, she does have some friends. The hotel staff, once again, fabulous. There's a whole chapter that I cracked up at the end of it. Because Morgan is not allowed to go to school for reasons, so a teacher who is not great comes to her at the hotel, and they make his life pretty unhappy, which was fabulous. It just shows how much they truly love Morgan. So it's a little found family. I love that. And I believe I have the second one, and the fourth one is maybe this year. I'm not sure. So, and a lot of these are like sequels to things like Morgan and a couple others coming up. So I don't want to give away too much in case you have not read the first one. And then I've read Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Last Olympian, which is the final book in this. Well, no, there's a book 6, isn't there? But so this is book 5, and this is just a culmination of the other 4 books. Half-Bloods are preparing for battle. The ones that are, well, on both sides, actually. Some Half-Bloods have gone over to Kronos. And it's, they go to New York City, and stuff happens, and Percy and the other kids, because they are just kids, some of them might be 18, but a lot of them are kids, you know, and they do best they can until, you know, help arrives, which may or may not happen. No, it does. And the gods are off fighting Typhon, so Kronos is like, yes, this is mine. And Percy's like, no thanks. So yeah. And Grover's in this. Love Grover. Annabeth, of course. And they all sort of grow up. I mean, obviously they have, but, you know, they grow more, if that makes sense. And yeah, it was a good ending. I am excited to read book 6 and then the other sets in the thing. So there's a list of them here. We've got Kane Chronicles, Heroes of Olympus, Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, and the Trials of Apollo. Oh, Nico is in this. Love him. So yeah, like basically a lot of the main characters you've seen throughout the rest of the books. They all come together and there's a big battle, and it's fun and it's great. The ending was sad. I did tear up a little bit, so yeah. Then I read Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens. This is more of an urban fantasy about Ellery, who doesn't believe in magic, and Nox, who has been trapped in the human realm. He doesn't want to go back to the other world where he came from. Oh, look at that cover. And yeah, and Ellery just sort of helps Nox out. And things happen. There is a 5-year winter, and it's been destroying Ellery's family farm. A lot of farms, but Ellery has one. And it's just like cold all the time, which seems really uncomfortable. So I read this first before the other one, Deeper Waters, and I liked this okay. It was good. It's happy LGBTQIA plus for everybody. It's just like completely normal in that world. Also in Deeper Waters, completely normal. So we love that. But there were some things I didn't like. Like there's a TV show and they call it like Witches and Wyverns and Werewolves. But that's not the title of the show. Like, you couldn't come up with a title of the show. Just make something up. And there's some gods and goddesses which never get named, which is kind of weird. And then it's winter all the time, right? And this town, they say it's like slowly dying, but there's still like a frat party at one point, and I'm like, I think the college would be the first place to go. But like, why would people send their kids to college when it's winter all year round in this one place? You know, like, so there were some leaps of logic that you sort of have to get over. But yeah, I liked it. There's some cool side characters. Ellery's cousin and her girlfriend. I did like the ending. It was very mythology reminiscent, if you will. And yeah, I liked when Ellery went, not went, but like, because Ellery doesn't believe in magic, but their mom does. But Nox eventually gets them to believe there is magic, and once Ellery does, they sort of like dive in wholeheartedly, and they're like, yep, everything's real, vampires, unicorns, werewolves, all that stuff. And everybody's like, what? I was like, you gotta do it. You gotta do it. So I did like that. Like, once they believed wholeheartedly. So, yeah, again, just cute little romance. Sometimes you just need cute little romance. Whether it be gay, straight, or otherwise. We're almost done. I read Nona the Ninth. I'm sad now because there is no Electo the Ninth yet. And I don't know if I said this for Harrow. It's hard to explain if you haven't read Gideon, and since this is the third one, you have to read Gideon and Harrow to understand this. And I don't even know what I could say that would not spoil it. There is horror. It's like light horror, because to me it doesn't like scare me. But there's like zombies, and there's a six-legged dog though, so that's a good boy. And like lots of death and dying related things. Probably I would say Harrow or maybe Gideon. Well, for me, Harrow had the most body horror, like blood, guts related stuff. But there is some of that in Nona. And Nona is about Nona, and she lives with her friends and on a planet. And she has friends. She's like 18 or 19, but she's not always, she's pretty naive. I was gonna say she's not the brightest, but she's smart. She's smart in different ways with what she's got. And, yeah, stuff happens. A lot of stuff happens, and pretty much up until the end, kind of like Harrow, and Gideon, you are left guessing. And then even the end happens, and you're still like, what the actual fuck did I read? What does that mean? And then you're like, God, Tamsin, I think. Tamsin Muir, give me Electo now. I don't think there's going to be any more after Electo. Apparently there wasn't supposed to be a fourth book. It was supposed to end, but there were too many ideas. So, yes. Read it. Just read it. Nona's cute little baby who loves Noodle. That's a Noodle, the six-legged dog. And her friends and family are cute too. So, I'm sad that I have to wait. I read Running with the Demon by Terry Brooks. This is a urban fantasy set in the Shannara universe, set in the 90s, I believe, set in a small town in Indiana, I want to say. Yeah, Illinois. And it's about two people, John Ross, and where's her name? Oh, Nest, right on the back, who's 14, and their worlds collide in Hopewell, Illinois, when, as it says, ancient horror is unleashed upon the world. Nest is different than her friends and most people. Her grandmother sort of has similar abilities, magical powers. They can talk to fairies or sprites that live in the woods nearby. And they can see things that they shouldn't be able to see, creepy things, which are creepy. And John Ross can as well. He is picked by the Lady of the Word, I think that comes around somewhere. and he is off to stop evil. I don't know if there's more. He's Knight of the Word, I believe. I don't know if there are more of him or he's the only one, because the world is pretty big, but like Shannara takes place in a relatively small area, so maybe this does too. Yeah, and John has to go save Nest, and Nest has to save herself, basically. And yeah, it was really good. I'm excited. I've got the rest of the trilogy I believe it somehow connects this urban fantasy to Shannara. So, I read His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. This is a reread for me. This is the Temeraire series. It is set during the Napoleonic War, but with dragons. I believe that's Tem on the front. And it's about Will Lawrence, who is a captain on a Navy ship, and they capture a French ship, and it has Tem, a dragon, and Tem picks Will. So Will is then outfitted to the aerial corps, excuse me, and stuff goes on from there. And what irritates me is dragons are big, right? There are small dragons, but the dragons who are fighting in these wars are big, massive animals, creatures. And, like, I'm pretty sure you find out in later books, the dragons are so big they couldn't colonize Africa, so I don't think slavery happened, or not as much. They couldn't colonize America as much as they wanted to, or South America as much as they wanted to. I think. I'm gonna reread the books, so yeah. And like other countries, I don't know if it's just England, but like, because Tem, they find out, is a Chinese dragon, and Chinese dragons, and I believe all Asian dragons, are treated very well because of the lore in real life, the mythology associated with them, and I believe they are treated very well in other countries. But Europe has them, England has them chained up and thinks they're stupid, and I'm like, you're just lucky they like you, in my opinion. They treat them like garbage, and like, they don't even talk, oh, the aerial corps is such a step down. I'm like, you get to ride dragons. How is that not cool? And you find out there's female members of the aerial corps, but then they have to hide it. And I'm like, why? Why? I think that's one of the things that throws me off, is like, you've changed all this stuff, but you still have the misogyny? Like, why not have the misogyny, but different somehow? I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm sure it changes as the books go on. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait until my memory comes back. But I loved it. I loved Tem so much. He's like, I don't understand any of this. And Will, who's new to the aerial corps, is like, I don't understand either. Let's figure it out together. They're fantastic little creatures. And there's a very sad, well, there's a couple sad parts, but there's one sad part that I was like, oh god. But yeah, I got to it, and I managed not to bawl my eyes out this time. So yeah, those are the things that have irritated me since I first read it. And then finally I read The Red Scholar's Wake by Alite de Bodard. This is a sci-fi lesbian romance about a Vietnamese inspired culture. Ricefish is the ship, but she's sentient and can have an avatar and like all over the place basically. And she is a bot maker, data analyst, and scavenger, and mother, which is important. Her ship gets captured by Ricefish, who are part of the Red Banner pirate fleet. There's purple, white and black and green, I want to say. And they're pirates, obviously. And Ricefish's wife, the Red Scholar, who was like the leader, just died. So Ricefish essentially gets Chi to figure out what happened, and she's like, I'll marry you, it's fine, and then people won't matter. People won't ask questions. And she's like, okay. So it's like an arranged marriage type of thing, but with some politics and lesbians. So I really liked it. Ricefish and her first wife had a son who is important, obviously. But Ricefish is like estranged from him, which is why she really tries to help Zichi with her own daughter. And I just thought it was an interesting take about how sentient ships have avatars that you can touch. They don't really eat or sleep, but they're just there, and they walk around their own ship. They can walk around space stations that they're connected to. So it was a very good book. It was just good. You know, sometimes you read a book and you go, that's just good. So I read this. This was like one of the first things I read. So I'm like trying to recall. There was a sex scene somewhere in the middle-ish, which I just skipped over, which is fine. There is fighting, but I don't think it's too graphic. And it's not like really hard sci-fi, where you don't understand the science behind it. Everything's pretty well explained. So yeah, those were the books I read in June. I got the month right. Very excited. I read so many books. I'm so proud of myself. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.